Now we'll go to our next segment and I'll turn it over to Vanessa.
Okay, wonderful. So this segment is going to focus on one question, and the population is immigrant and refugee students. I'm going to say the order in which we'll go, but first let me mention the question. The question is simply put as, how will you support immigrant and refugee students if elected? And I'd like to start with Richard. 1 minute each.
Okay, thanks, Vanessa. So when the Trump was elected the first time in 2017, I led the effort in our school district to develop a policy that keeps ICE off of campuses. That's now the state law. And part of my job at the California Department of Education is enforcing that law to make sure that districts are actually in compliance. But it goes beyond the policy of keeping ICE off of campuses, because where we see the real terror occur is when families are taking their students to and from schools, and we see parents arrested uh, as they're there to pick up their students or after they drop off their students. So what we need to do is connect schools and school districts with community-based networks that are organized to prevent this kind of ICE terrorism that we see from the Trump administration. And we've seen powerful examples of communities rallying to protect their students and families.
Thank you. Next is Al.
Yeah, so last year I was proud to author the California Safe Haven Schools Act, which is the state law to keep ICE out of California's schools statewide. That was following my conversations with immigrant students, in my classroom at El Camino Community College, as well as schools, communities throughout the state where I've heard from students. And so that was my number one priority, to fight Trump and his immigration raids. But beyond that, I've championed programs for English learners. A couple of weeks ago, I was honored by the California Association for Bilingual Education because, I've been a big champion of the English Learner Roadmap. I've been a big champion of the multilingual programs, to support our immigrant kids, many of whom come from, households speaking languages other than English. And so, providing the support to get them to preserve and be proud of their own language and culture while at the same time teaching them English.
Thank you. Anthony, next.
I would I would I would work on that the same way I worked on it when I was speaker, and the same way we worked on it when Donald Trump was president of the United States the first time. Where we were really effective in the legislature was, in particular, was taking on the Trump administration and the courts. That's something that we did upwards of, I believe, 14 times, 14 different lawsuits against the federal government. We were successful in the vast majority of those. The past year, I've been working for the UCLA Voting Rights Project. We've done the same thing. This past week, we sued the state of Florida on their illegally gerrymandered maps. So ultimately, the fight for immigrant families, the fight for refugee families, is one that California has been fighting valiantly. But the federal government, we know wants to interfere with our efforts, and the best way to push back is through the courts, and to do so honestly on a multi-state basis. We know that joining with like-minded and like-missioned states like Hawaii, like Oregon, that's the last time it was successful.
Thank you. Frank, you're next.
Thank you so much for the question. I've been a pretty prominent immigrant rights advocate and organizer here in San Francisco for more than a decade now. And the way that came about was actually putting our bodies in the line. UESF, the United Educators of San Francisco, made it very clear during the first Trump administration, second Trump administration, that families need to be welcomed. And that doesn't come from resolutions, propositions, or even the laws. It means putting yourself out there as a leader. And as the executive vice president, that's what we did. Like, we presented ourselves to our family, your safest place is here at school. And then we also won in our most recent contract, something that UTLA, the United Teachers of Los Angeles, has also won, making sure that sanctuary is encoded into the contract so that districts actually have to defend or support our members as they put their bodies on the line. So as State Superintendent of Public Instruction, I will be out in front and be a target for the Trump administration in defense of our families.
Thank you. Gus, you're next.
Thank you for the question. First of all, every student should be able to show up to school, get a good education, and then go home to their families. So it shouldn't matter socioeconomic status, race, gender, immigration status. None of those things should matter. Every kid should be able to show up to school, get a good education, go home to their families. As superintendent, I will make sure that as a system, we are always following the law, no more, no less. So if a law enforcement officer shows up to a school with a signed judicial warrant, of course, the school is under a legal obligation to cooperate with that warrant, only to the letter of whatever that warrant says. If an immigration officer or any other law enforcement officer shows up to a school without a signed warrant, the school is under absolutely no obligation to do anything other than just be polite to whoever that is. And I would encourage schools to follow the sort of legal obligation that they have, but no more and no less than that. I think if we just focus on that, we will be able to get our families through some of the things that we're going through right now as a nation. But we will get through it together. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Josh.
Thank you. I guess so. Like Al, like Anthony, I was proud to vote for SB 54 in 2017, which is still in effect, the California Values Act, which forbids California law enforcement from participating directly in federal immigration acts. So important, to Richard's point. These stories about families being separated, especially where father, mother is detained, dropping off or picking up their child from school, should not happen. And I support SB 54. I'm from Orange County. That came at real political cost, but it was the right thing to do. And I think my colleagues have mentioned some things that are important. CDE, superintendent, can be really helpful to districts in providing protocols, templates, best practice support, so that every district has not only a plan, but can build out with neighborhood assets and partners, as Richard mentioned, to best protect our students and their families. And as Anthony mentioned, the courts, unfortunately, will be a resource, and the AG and the superintendent will be working on that together.
Thank you. Nichelle, you're next.
Yes. Supporting immigrant and refugee students is, in my view, a twofold approach. You have to think about their access to a quality education, as well as their physical protections and protections of data and their privacy. We're thinking language acquisition support. We're thinking culturally relevant curriculum. We're thinking access to ethnic studies. We're thinking ways to combat this system where they feel welcome, they feel supported academically and socially. And then we think about protections around immigration enforcement. With LA Community College District, I chair a student protections task force where we meet monthly and talk to our stakeholders, including our students, as to their rights, what they can do, what they can't do, what they shouldn't do, and how we can keep our schools as safe havens for our students while they're there, on their way there, and when they're leaving. And that's what I intend to do as Superintendent of Public Instruction.
Thank you.